Good morning, Winterview, back again with another brief dialogue with dear friend. Guess who? Annastacey. That's right, driving to work on a fine, drizzly, rainy, cold, miserable morning. The kind of morning where you wish you could just be spiritually enlightened suddenly and blink your eyes and be sitting in the Bahamas sipping on a mojito while the harem fan you with palm fronds and someone massages your feet. I really didn't say that word very well, did I? Massages your feet. Anyway, thought this would be a good segue into today's brief dialogue, which is on... What is it on? I keep forgetting. No memory. All gone. Anyway, I'll just start. I know what it's about. So, there's a very common idea that runs through the whole Enlightenment club that one must somehow purify, become more pure, in a way, to somehow bring about the state of enlightenment or the conditions conducive to, as I sometimes hear it put, enlightenment. So I thought we'd have a little chit-chat about this wonderful idea. So when we look at religion, broadly speaking, we often find at the start, right back at the start, some kind of revelation by an individual, some kind of wisdom or information they received or just came up with that seems somehow, really, really clever. And from that point, the religion spawns. Now, the revelation, the realization way back at the start could have been quite mystical, could have been something from the divine, whatever that is, or some inspiration, whatever. It doesn't actually matter. What happens next, inevitably, losing my words this morning, inevitably, is that people who hear that communication or that message or whatever, it's not that they don't understand it. Well, that is part of it. They don't understand it. But the second part is that the way the mind operates, it kicks into gear. The mind has a series of behaviours, and I've gone through a few of them already, but one of them is to codify, classify, and structure. The mind, you could say, is that which is responsible for the survival of the organism. So it has to know very well about how to organise and order in the space-time realm, create sequences, do things in a stepwise, repeatable fashion, and so on and so forth, because that has adaptive validity, or it's good for your survival, in plain talk. When it hears a message of wisdom or truth or whatever, it cannot help but try and turn that message into some kind of code or classification. Can't help it. Doesn't do it on purpose, just does what it does. So then we get the birth of religion. So from the revelation, out of the non-linear realm, you might say, into the linear realm of space-time comes the classification and codifying of that wisdom. And then the mind, not quite knowing, unfortunately, what to do with the information, decides in its infinite wisdom or finite wisdom to worship the information in some way, to venerate it, to repeat it endlessly, to think about it a lot, and so forth. And this is the evolution, or the birth, you could say, of spirituality. So spirituality is somehow an attempt by the mind to use what the mind thinks is truth to acquire, to get something. So it's a form of materialism, in a sense. It's just a more it's a posh version of materialism, sort of highfalutin version. We renounce the world, but we're going to try and acquire spiritual knowledge of some kind. But the mind often, well, not often, yes, often, sorry, gets stuck. It doesn't quite know what it's doing with this whole spiritual game. It has a vague notion that somehow at the end there'll be a lollipop, but in the interim it doesn't really know what to do with the information. It's the mind's design being for cause and effect, and 1 + 1 = 2, AB, and then follows C, and so forth. Just follows the same set of behaviours that it uses for any other endeavour. So in essence, I'll just do something again and again, I'll work really hard at it, and then as I expect, because that's how it usually works, I'll get a reward. And you fail. So the poor old mind, not understanding its own behaviours very often, gets itself stuck in these sort of funny loops of spirituality, spiritual thinking, spiritual progress, etc. And within that endeavour, you could say, one of the most common things that the mind tries to do is it tries to look at the person and figure out what's wrong with the person, because I'm not getting a spiritual goal, I'm not achieving enlightenment, I'm not glowing with golden love yet. So it turns its attention, not all the time, but very frequently, it turns its attention to the person who's engaging in the spirituality, and looks at the person and goes, right, well, clearly there's a problem with you because I'm not getting enlightened yet. And we move into the realm of purification. Purification is one of the behaviours of the mind in its naive attempt to somehow fix or improve the person to enable enlightenment or spiritual progress to occur. It is in essence trying to make this poor, unworthy seeker worthy somehow. So it looks at this creature and starts tutting itself very quickly, like, what are you doing? And it comes up with a whole range of weird and wonderful ideas about what the individual needs to do. Now, you can, of course, being the mind and being very clever, what it usually does is it looks to the ways other people have purified in the past. And that could be changing diet. So it looks at the diet and goes, well, clearly you're not going to become enlightened if you're eating McDonald's. So the mind starts to modify behaviours in the sort of space-time realm, you could say. Now, what's a bit funny or a bit unfortunate too is a lot of the changes in the path to purification can actually be quite healthy. And so someone who, let's go back to McDonald's, is scoffing McDonald's and getting drunk every other night, you could say in the space-time realm that's unhealthy. It's not a great way to sustain the organism. And to change one's diet, to stop drinking alcohol and to become a vegetarian, let's just say, could have some positive effect on the body in health terms. The person could feel a little bit more vital, a little bit less sort of tired and drowsy, or less mood swings, less, digestive problems and all that. And all of a sudden, very quickly, there's an immediate reward for the body for changing the diet. It's like, wow, I changed my diet and I feel better. And this is rather sort of sinister in a way, you might say, being very dramatic, because the mind now has a reward for a behaviour change on its way to spiritual perfection. So the mind goes, great, I'm definitely on my way. That change definitely worked. We're on our way. So vegetarianism, tick. What else can I do? Let's wear natural fibre. Let's not wear nylon anymore. Let's not wear latex, because I just love wearing my latex and I've got to give that up. So we stop wearing latex and nylon as we do, and wear natural hemp fibres, because hemp is the universal material that we can do anything with, and blah blah blah. And so off it goes, and before long, the mind doesn't take very long to figure this out. It makes a whole swath of changes. Now I'm wearing natural fibers, now I'm meditating 2 or 3 times a day, and I feel very relaxed because I do that, and my thoughts are less sort of turbulent, and my nutritional system is cleared up, and I've lost a lot of unhealthy belly fat. Now I'm looking quite trim, my eyes look a bit more alive. So my spiritual journey is definitely underway. So after all these changes, one starts to feel a positivity in general, felt physically and mentally. And so it reinforces the spiritual journey of purification quite powerfully. But then we run into some roadblocks, or some hurdles, you might say, because of a wonderful or not so wonderful thing called, in psychology, what's it called? It's similar to the word normalisation. What is it? Let's just go with normalize. I can't think of the word. Cursed memory. Anyway, all these experiences eventually become normalized in that they're not very exciting anymore. The mind actually gets quite bored. And then an endeavor that you undertook for a spiritual goal now can become quite onerous. Like you're sticking to your vegetarianism quite stringently because you firmly believe that it's getting you towards where you want to be. But now occasionally you feel like a hamburger, or you get hungry and you just think, oh screw it, I'll just have a quick McDonald's. And then of course you feel a bit awful because you've just eaten something the body's not used to, and then you get the double whammy of the guilt. You broke your spiritual practice, you've pissed off God. You're not going to become enlightened with this kind of behavior, young man. And so now we get in this awful cycle of guilt creeping in when behaviors cannot be sustained. Then the initial buzz of the positive life changes, we'll call them, have started to wear off a bit, normalized, and we don't get that sort of buzz that we got right at the beginning when we started the journey, when we made all those big radical changes. And so the mind does something a little bit more sinister. There's that word again. It ramps it up. It becomes more extreme. It either gives up completely, it's like, oh screw it, I can't do this, and goes back to the way it used to be, and then feels like a failure, or it ramps it up into extremism. The diet, no more is a simple vegetarian diet going to cut it. Apparently I'm not pure enough. I've got to go double, triple, mega pure, and that's not just vegetarian but vegan, and not just vegan but locally grown, macrobiotic, ethically farmed, spiritually blessed by a monk, food. I've got to fast as well, intermittent fasting, and so on. And then suddenly the hemp clothes that you were so keen on right at the start, they're looking a bit sort of, well, everyone's wearing them, and enlightenment is special somehow. So I've really got to step that up too. So I'm going to only wear the clothes made from the rarest silkworm, again, that have been blessed by a master, in special colours as well, because the colours have an impact on my energy field. And on it goes into the spiralling depths of extremism. And of course there can be little shifts in perception and changes in the body, and sometimes feeling good, sometimes feeling elated, and sometimes feeling crap. And it's all part of this wonderful thing we think of as the journey as we purify. But the shadow that's repressed at all times during this purification is anything grossly physical, anything grossly human or animal is pushed away somehow. It's not accepted. It's certainly not pure. So, sex and going to the toilets and dirty jokes and ogling women and all that become sort of these sort of Victorian morals start creeping in, like, I can't possibly do that. That is an impure thought I just had. I need to bless myself and purify. So you get this funny little Puritanism creeping into the mind too. But the fact is that can't be sustained. It takes a lot of psychic energy. And of course, we haven't even got to the whole subject of it's missing the point entirely. It's totally missing the point. But we have coming back to the appearance, what's happening in the appearance. It's all a giant play, a game, you could say. It looks like watching a movie. And the fact that the mind has chosen the person to look at and to purify is quite funny, because it could have chosen anything in the appearance. It's because it's still fixated that the body is me and I have to do something to me to change, because it still has that fundamental belief. It fixates on the body. But if you think about it, even just using logic, not even spiritual wisdom, just logic, if the entire appearance is one, then everything is me, so to speak. So you could have chosen a tree. Why not purify a tree? It's the same thing. Why not purify a cloud? Why not purify your car? Have a spiritually pure car. It's the same exact endeavor. That's how ridiculous it is. And when we come back to when we realize the ridiculousness of it, we can come back to the body and relax a bit. We can go, you know what? It's just a little animal that lives in the world. It's just a little critter in the forest. And a very clever little critter as well. But very funny as well. And this little critter, it wants to have sex. It wants to have sex most of its adult life. It has thoughts about it. It just wants to do it. It wants to eat junk food. It wants to eat sugar. It wants to tell dirty jokes and laugh at them. It wants to tell fart jokes occasionally and laugh at them. It wants to make funny faces at children and make them laugh. It wants to have a party, invite all its friends and get drunk. It wants to do all this because it's a little animal thing. It's a wonderful little animal. And it's impure as well. It's totally impure. It'll never be pure, no matter how extreme you think you need to get some kind of spiritual goal. And so you can wake up in the morning and feel like crap. You can just wake up and feel like, oh my god, I just feel like crap today. My life sucks so bad. I've got the most boring job. Or I don't mind my job, but what I've got to do today is totally mind-numbingly stupid. Or, I've got to go in and do this task and I'm feeling fat today. I just don't feel attractive. I feel ugly. I feel needy today. I feel like I feel grumpy. I feel grouchy. I feel annoying. I'm going to be an annoying person today. I'm just feeling oppositional. I'm going to kind of be the contrarian in the room all day because I just am in that mood. And that's the little human creature, the impure human creature, that has nothing to do with enlightenment, or you could say has everything to do with enlightenment so far as everything else does, if that's clear. So spirituality, purification, sure, you'll lose a bit of weight, you'll feel a bit more level-headed probably, and then you'll get bored, and then you'll try something else, and then you feel guilty for changing horses halfway across the river. You'll feel like you need to study harder. Gotta study harder. I'm not getting it. Gotta study something more. Gotta get this. So we love these little human critters. We like these little forest creatures with their fart jokes and their want to get drunk. And they want to have sex all the time. That's what they do. It's what they're programmed to do, you could say. They're not spiritual. They're no more spiritual than anything else. Anyway, I think that's enough talk for this one dialogue in particular. Maybe I'll do a follow-up to this. I quite like this topic. It makes me laugh. This has been Winterview, forest creature, thinker of impure thoughts, enlightened master, psychologist. Comments welcome. Thank you.